You are at the Organic Machinery for No-Till and Weed Control, presented by Ann Pelgröm and Josh Pelgröm. And we're gonna start with some housekeeping stuff. This is gonna be a bilingual training. So Allison and Christina, you can take over. Our commitment to racial equity and justice at NOFA, we are working to deepen our commitment to racial equity and justice, including honest work, examining whiteness, and dismantling systems of white supremacy. They are part of many dominant systems, including our food system. The foundation of modern organic agriculture is rooted in the long-standing cultural practice of BIPOC communities. We acknowledge that the US was built on stolen land and that the food system was built on the stolen labor of Black, Indigenous, and Latina, Asian, and other people of color. Please take a moment to find your location in this map later on, and we will post the link in the chat for you to be able to check the map. Next slide, Mel. So because our racial equity work, we have some racial equity in action. So for BIPOC participants, we're gonna have a BIPOC caucus on Sunday at 1. And this is a space for people of color to celebrate and talk about sustaining our communities, healing for racial trauma, and working to organize collectively for systematic change. And we're gonna have a Spanish lounge, and also Sunday 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. And for white allies and co-conspirators, here are some ways to center racial equity in your own work and support BIPOC communities. You can share resources, including land, money, and tools with BIPOC organizations such as the Urban Farming Institute, Gardening in the Community, the African Alliance, and the Native American Rights Fund, Indigenous Peoples Network, and Pocassi Poquenoke Land Trust. Also, you can support legislation that would begin the talk and advance the work towards reparation. And number 3, protect the rights of farm and food workers. And again, this session etiquette and info. This account is to set mute participants up an entry, but if you need to speak for some reason, please simply press the microphone icon at the bottom of your screen. Please mute yourself when you're done speaking to avoid background noise interfering with other speakers. And if I am the host, so if I hear some background noise, I will mute you. Sorry in advance. Feel free to use the chat feature to comment at any point during the workshop. The host would check the chat periodically during the session, and the presenter will leave time at the end of to address questions in the chat. And also please note that this session is recorded, so if you don't want your picture in the video, you can just stop your video. These are our gold sponsors. Thank you for making this possible. We would not be able to have our conference without you. And this is the slide for our silver sponsors. We also thank them for the time and effort and their support. And I want to remind everyone that we still have the online auction. So if you want to go to the Rally app, we're going to put the link in the chat for it. And we have a bunch of virtual vendors. And so if you go in your book, you can see the special discounts that they are given for you participating in our conference today and tomorrow. And now I'm so glad to finally let you in with Anna and Joe's for our presentation and organic machinery for no-till practices and weed control. The floor is yours, Anna.
Thank you, Ulam. Thank you, Ulam, and thank you to all the people at NOFA Mass for inviting us to do this presentation. I'm Anna, and this is Jos. And we're going to do a presentation together today about no-till and weed control and how machines changed the opportunities for organic farming on our farm. I'll tell a little bit about the history, how Jos began as a farmer, and Jos will take over and tell more about the ins and outs about the machinery. Often I hear Jos saying, I had a dream. And so today I want to share a short introduction about Jos Pelgröm and his roots as at that time, a struggling young biodynamic pioneer farmer. In the second part of the presentation, Jos will go in depth about the machines. When he started farming, he couldn't know it at that time, but he was in the middle of a crossroad of changes, and innovation would play a role to make changes on the farm. I'm going to take you back to 1976. This is a map of the Northeast Polder in Holland. At that time, Jos was studying social geography at the University of Amsterdam. His dad passed away and he gave up his study to the university to return to the farm and help his mother with the farm. It was never his intention to become a farmer, and I guess fate seemed to be calling him. This is a map of the Flevopolder where Jos started farming. It's a man-made landscape created by the Dutch people. The Northeast Polder was land won from the sea, and it's rich in organic material and minerals. Because of the high fertility, it was a region particularly designed to grow food. In more ways than one, the polders were considered, even then and still today, the promised land, and they were designed as a model society. You acquired land as a farm family by passing through a strict selection committee, and you had to show exceptional character and farming quality to qualify. These are some pictures of after World War II, small-scale farming in the polder with mixed farms, cows, and agriculture. Jos's parents had received points to earn a small farm of 36 hectares, which was a typical farm in that area. It was a mixed farm with dairy cows, corn for feed, sugar beets, potatoes, a big vegetable garden, a big family, some cats, and horses. And Pa, he liked to breed horses. This is a family picture. Maybe someone will recognize Jos as a young boy. He was the youngest of 3 boys, and family life was back then fun, and there was animals on the farm. Mom didn't work, so it was a little bit different. Well, Mom worked a lot, but she worked on the farm a lot with a big family and a big vegetable garden. Yeah, that was a misser. I shouldn't have said that way. She did work an extra lot. Farmers are a hardworking bunch. You all know that. Probably some of you are farmers. So they did what they knew best in this new region. They built this land from scratch. By 1978, when Jos started farming, agriculture in the polders had become already a well-organized machine. The farms were becoming even more industrial and efficient. The infrastructure was created to support its growth. Although Jos was born in a fertile agricultural area, agriculture in general had already started to show its flaws. And everything in this region was built straightforward. And you see that in this picture. It was rapidly growing and developing. It was becoming more of a farming industry as opposed to the small farm you just saw in the other picture. And this reflected in the big farms, in the big barns, and the equally uniform land with equally uniform monocultures. It was as if the people lost really interest in this small scale farming and were aiming to become uniform and efficient. Although farming had been part of his roots from early on, Jos did not fit into this rigid society. The lack of biodiversity combined with the artificial environment concerned him, and he didn't feel inspired to follow in these footsteps. And although these tulips look really beautiful, there was a lot of poison used to grow them, and still today. He understood that to see food as a mere commodity was sooner or later going to invoke a calamity. He started feeling alienated, and maybe society wasn't going in the right direction. And this is a picture of a cow on their farm. And this was the period of protests against nuclear power, against nuclear weapons. And Jos.
Well, it was in Amsterdam at a big protest manifestation.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So farmers started seeing things differently. The environment was already starting to show strains from this flourishing farm community. It could be too much for this small planet. Whereas others around him praised the polders for their bounty, he saw much that was lost due to lots of use of chemicals that were being used on the farms. And this could only be harmful, he felt, to the water life and to the food, even to health problems. He was learning more about soil life, and he felt sure that in times of drought, lost moisture from extreme tillage could have a bad effect. It also seemed like compacted soil was not living, and the earth could not absorb water when there would be too heavy rainfalls. So this kind of earth wasn't supporting living earthworms, and plants wouldn't be growing. Living organisms would suffocate. And all this in that time was really alarming for a young person, just like it's alarming today. And we still hear, even 45 years later, the challenge of climate issues. What he saw already happening around him and elsewhere in the world could also happen in his polder. Even though science had made a lot possible, he feared that if we did not learn to manage things better, it would be disastrous. But how do you make change? So luckily, Jos wasn't alone in his thinking at this time. Simultaneously, great thinkers were talking about a different approach to farming, and this had a profound impact on him as a young person. Soil health and animal health meant healthier people, and this way of farming inspired him. The organic movement was gaining momentum, and along with a few others in his generation, Jos felt that to become a good farmer, a better kind of agriculture had to begin on his own farm. Good farming meant farming naturally, without herbicides and pesticides. If we take a second and try to imagine ourselves back then, it may sound like he was turning his back to modern agriculture, which was already established at that time. But this way of thinking must have sounded radical and provocative to the establishment. Conventional farming, like I said, was booming, and organic farming was still in a real infantile stage. Why would anyone want to go back? But as a biodynamic farmer, you were not looked upon favorably, and these were even those that considered you really to be the village fool. And your witty fields really were the proof. It would take a long time before organic would grow into a diverse and dynamic, sustainable and agricultural system and movement, and that biodiversity would start being more and more introduced. So from the early, when he started farming, in 1976. The 60s and 70s were a time of change, and this new one, freedom, supported the young farmers coming of age. It was a period in history where people were breaking loose from any other conventions in society, and that helped the agricultural movement towards a more sustainable way of farming. Farmers started to adapt concepts and practices for many alternative farming systems, including organic and biodynamic. People were realizing that farming based solely on narrow-minded scientific knowledge was not going to be enough. The earth had her own answers to challenges, and young farmers were keen to learn and listen. To support his farm and the land, it sounded right to Jos that he should shift his attention to the organic matter, to the biology, and to the energy in the soil. A few advisors around him were focusing on reviving the soil, and it made sense to him that he wanted his farm to become a whole. If he wanted to incorporate scientific knowledge, nature, and society, relationships would need to be nurtured between the earth, growers, and the consumers. In 1978, these new ideas about farming emerging, and these ideas rooted themselves in Jos. If he should farm, then he had to do it his way. He would grow good food, food for everyone, and he would restore the quality of the soil and make sure that animals, plants, and people could live harmoniously with each other. His pitchfork was heavy, but he was ready for the work ahead. Okay. A healthy farm depends on a lot of things. A healthy, let's see, okay. A healthy farm depends on a lot of things. In the first place, taking interest in what is around and already you want to, and the direction you want to go. Jos looked for a balance on his farm to create a closed system with outputs and inputs staying on the farm. And animals played a big role in that. To introduce wider crop rotation, cover crops and animals played a role. By introducing a wider rotation, he knew that it would be easier to increase biodiversity, restore the soil, and make the whole system stronger. This would help bring back the balance. Learning about and introducing the right cover crops would keep the fields covered and nourish the soil, and the subsequent crops decrease erosion and increase organic matter in the soil to create a living soil. In addition, the right cover crops would help restore the balance and land deficiencies. The cows and manure would help nourish the system, and he would be less dependent on inputs from outside the farm. This is the last picture of the beautiful farm that everybody is looking to have with cover crops that are nourishing the system, but that balance wasn't found overnight. And like this all sounds good on paper, at the time, there wasn't a lot of information available, and the balance wasn't reached overnight. And in reality, he found himself up to his knees in the weeds. So the next slide, Jos will take over, and that's when smart innovation that just started entering the market would help him close the circle and really bring a change to the farm. And that's when the work at hand became easier.
Well, here I come in my coal mine English. This is the first picture. Yeah, when I started farming, there was no technology, nearly no technology for organic farming. Yeah, chemicals took over the industry. So there were only conventional ideas of how to farm. There was one vision, more and more chemicals. And by the time the industrial power to bring this whole vision into practice, not only by the industry itself, but all the advisors, yeah, created a kind of herd mentality. So if you choose another road, then all the people thought you were out of your mind, and the whole farm soon would go bankrupt. And at that time, I was farming together with my mother, and she was really stressed by the social control. So it was a hard time to start in this region, this artificial region, with organic farming. Oh, Anna, you go too fast. Yeah. So this is a kind of harrow. This is still a famous harrow in America. We notice it's a Dutch harrow. It's called the Lely harrow. And that was the only implement, the only machine you had to use for weed control with a harrow. Yeah, and then go on. And whenever you come on our organic farms nowadays, you see these old-fashioned type of harrows. So this is a wonderful picture. This is how this machine should have a place on the farm. Yeah, it's taken over by the weeds and it is not functioning anymore. Then there was the period that we had a lot of hand labor. So not only machines, but also a lot of people came into the farm to help the weeds get out of the crops. And on the left hand, you see a so-called weeding bed, where a lot of people were lying on to make it easier and to make it more social, even with music and with a lot of fun under it. But nevertheless, it's a lot of work. And at the end of the day, you have a broken back and you have the feeling, is this organic? Now I'm not feeling organic anymore. Yeah, and on the right hand, there's even an electric with solar power driven weed bed. So it was more and more, perfection. Oh, Anna, wait.
I had to sneeze.
Okay,
Sorry.
So it's getting better and better, but nevertheless, handwork. Yes. This is me with my first modern harrow in 2006, I guess. And I was the first farmer in Holland to import this harrow. And this is a so-called traveler harrow. And I will explain later what is so special on it. It's invented by an organic farmer from Germany. And it started with this type in this period. This organic farmer was a friend of Traveler. Traveler had nothing to do with organic machinery, but that's how it started to produce these machines. I don't see it. And perhaps I can say, I've started it in Holland, and nowadays organic farmers who start converting their farm, they all come to us with the question, what kind of harrow should I use? I have heard I should buy a traveler harrow, for it was such a revolution in the way you can use a harrow, and I can show it here. You can do it so precise, that you can harrow really soon in the season already, pre-emerge, but also after emerging the crop. You can do it real soft and precise. And that's the whole trick with harrowing.
Managing the weeds.
If you can do it so soon in the season, then you have the small weeds, the white thread stadium, that is so effective in destroying the weeds. And you can see the beans can stand it. Here you see the small weeds on the left hand. And you see there are several ways to use the machine. You can even bind up or fix sometimes above the crop. But in effect, the system is that you always adjust the tension that it can handle, that the crop can handle it. Here is the first video. Well, here you can see that independent how high the tines are, so on top of the ridge or the row, or at the flanks or below, it's everywhere with the same tension. And that makes harrowing really very important. So now all tines are following the contours of the field, no matter how high or how low the surface is, and the tines simply have the same tension on each spot. Here you can see another type of harrow on the right side. That's an Einbuck. It's a more or less, a rotary harrow. Here you see on the left hand the traveler, and on the right hand the Einbuck. And here you still can see that the traveler is working more gentle, but also the Einbuck can work really aggressive and well when you have a hard soil. This is a video, I guess. Yeah. Here you can see how gentle it can work. These are small sugar beets. Yeah, and also in conventional farming, this machine is getting more and more popular. I say this machine, but this type of machine, I mean, yeah, where the tines can break up a crust. So after sowing, yeah, then when there's a heavy rainfall, there becomes a crust on the field. And then with this type of machine, you can break up the crust so that the plants can emerge better, but also after emerging, yeah, then you can bring in air in the soil by using this type of harrow. This is the American way of harrowing. I think most of you know this. It's very popular in America. It's absolutely not popular in Europe. It's getting more and more well known now. Americans like this very much because it has a high capacity. It's going very, very fast. Yeah, and it looks like wonderful if you don't take a sharp look in the field. For if you take a sharp look, you see that the result is only partial. It's by far not so precise as a good tine harrow. So it looks fine, and in hard soils and in wheat, yeah, or cereals, it might be a good start, but absolutely it's not so effective. And we noticed this before we are in America active nowadays. And farmers in America, they don't like the tine harrow, for they have bad experiences with it. But now they know the modern type of harrows, they get more and more enthusiastic, and they place, yeah, the rotary harrow in the shed and bring in the tine harrow. This is again the Einbuck. You see, it's really aggressive, and this is a higher crop. But the problem with this type is it can be too aggressive. Now it's not so harmful, but if you have a fragile crop, then it can be too harmful.
I think you can say something about your crops, because in the Netherlands, and like a lot of the farmers in Massachusetts are growing a lot of different fine crops.
Yeah.
And that's what you were doing too. So,
but we will see more crops. Then we can. This is in effect an old-fashioned. We will show this video again. This is the old-fashioned type of tine harrow, although it's still, yeah, often sold in Europe and even also in America. The problem with this type of tine harrow is that it is not following the contours of the field, and the tines are very flexible. And then you have the problem that even two tines can come in the same track and can damage the crop, especially the tines are searching the lowest point. So where the seed is lying, it's ripping out, yeah, the crop on that place. If you show it again, then you can have a sharp look. No. So it's by far not so effective as the modern tine harrows. Yep. This is another, also a modern type of tine harrow. So Traveler started in 2005 or 4, I guess. And for 10 years, it was more or less, yeah, a monopoly, this modern type of harrow, for there was a lot of patents on it. Yeah, but then other companies So what is possible with this type of harrow? So nowadays you see the big brands, APV is the big brand from Austria, Einböck, yeah, Hatzenbichler or Horsch, yeah, they all try to imitate the principle of this harrow. And I will explain the principle later. But here you see it's working much better than the conventional type of harrow. But still the tines are more flexible. And this machine is much heavier than the traveler. And that's a disadvantage too. You don't want to use the heavy tractors for it. Yeah. Here you see all the variations. Left, a Dutch type, yeah, a French type in the middle, and a Horsch at the right side. I don't know if many people know the Horsch, but Horsch is a big company in Europe. And you see it's a real heavy machine. But the principle is taken over, yeah, from the principle of traveler. This is the latest invention. This is an automatic depth control. This is a monitor for it. So nowadays you can install the depth of the machine, of the tines. Yeah, you can adjust it in the screen, a touch screen, and then the tines remain at the same depth all the time. It's an automatic sensor, yeah, or it's sensoring the depth, and then it's automatically giving more or less tension or pressure on the tines. Okay. Anna,
part of our dream and was really when we started working with traveler machines and stopped farming and bringing them to the farmer, is we really felt that there had to be more tools available for smaller farmers, good tools. And so it was really Jos's dream to encourage the factory to build this good tool in a smaller scale. And that's when the tiny traveler came on the market. There are 3 hand-drawn tools from 80 centimeters to 130 centimeters. And what we see is that it gives a lot more farmers the opportunity to have tools for mechanical weed control and to reduce labor, but still have good tools that do the same working principle. So this has been a dream of ours to incorporate these machines in smaller scale farming, which you all may know is very intensive. So weed control can be done this way with hand-drawn tools. And this is a video of the 80 centimeter wide tiny traveler. One of the wheels is adjustable to straddle a bed. And these are 2-day-old transplants, brassicas.
So only to disturb the topsoil a bit, yeah, the white thread stadium, yeah, can be destroyed.
And this can be a big change for a farmer when there is weed pressure. Of course, there are always other ways to deal with weed pressure, but when you're working and there are weeds and you need to get at them really quickly, then this is a real effective way of doing it. And you can pull it by hand in the tunnels, on the field, on beds, and you can adjust the width of the wheels. We have them in different variations. You see here on top, on a plot on a big vegetable garden. On the lower left-hand side, a solar variation that we're still working on improving, one with a Honda motor, and we even have one that's available with horse-driven. This is the other extreme end of the scale, that big farmers who want to reduce weeds, don't want to use chemicals, can still be very effective with the same system, but then in a larger scale.
Goes up till 100 feet. Now we start with the other part of the story. Cover crops, and to grow them is one thing, but to terminate them is another thing. And you can see it over here. If you have such a mass of organic stuff to destroy, you need good tools to to chop them, to make first the crops smaller. For it's not the system that you can also use, that you plant your seed in the cover crop. That's not popular in Holland. For we have a lot of vegetables and a lot of crops that where you can't use a lot of organic material on the soil. So most of the time, farmers destroy the cover crop early in spring, so that there is enough time that the cover crop can be killed, and then they plant anew their vegetables or potatoes or whatever. So these are all machines. The blue one is the traveler again. These are all machines that are used to destroy the cover crops. And most of the time they are used in front of the tractor, and then at the rear side you have another tool. Here you see how it works. And with this machine, there's no machine at the rear side, but you can combine it with a machine that comes later to cut through the roots of the cover crops. In fact, this is more or less a slow motion where you can drive real fast with it. And this is the same machine. The big problem in Europe is an insect in maize or corn, maize beetle. And it's very important that you destroy the stubble of the corn or the maize so that it can rot, and that this beetle can't find their home. These beetles can't find their home in it. So this is also why this machine is used on this stubble. Now we go to the other part. First you chop the cover crop, but then you have to cut the roots. And in a way that you do it very shallow so that you can place or plant your seed on the still wet soil so that it can germinate, so that you don't lose soil. For in springtime it's often very dry, and if you want a quick start, then you better place your seed on the wet soil. And especially in organic farming, it's very important that you have an equal germination. For if the germination is not at the same time, if you have a split germination or a mixed crop, then the rest of the weed control will be more and more difficult. For you always adjust the machines in what the crop can handle. And if the stadium of the crop is so diverse, then it's really difficult to have a good weed control. Here you can see that it's very important that you have a shallow cut and that you have a flat field below, so that the seed can be placed on an equal depth. And this is the machine to show, you have a double wheel, a tandem wheel, flat steel sweeps, and there are other parts on the machine, to stabilize the machine and to lift the roots when they are cut through. And these are, Traveler was the first one to have this specialized machine, but now more and more brands are following Traveler in this case. But here you can see that, it's still a problem, especially the horse, the right one. It's not such a problem to cut through 100% of the roots, but to do it shallow is really difficult. And this one on the right side, you can see it's not flat enough, and you have to go deeper and deeper, and then you can cut them through. But then you have a deep, loose soil where you can't place the seed on the wet soil.
Can you tell something about the left one?
Oh, it's all, this is much better already. But another issue is that you need tines that are feathered, that they can go up and down a little bit. For if you have these stable tines, you can't control the depth so well. So they are cheaper, yeah, but they don't work so precise. Is this a video?
Yeah. Should I run it?
Yeah. So this is another combination where the shopper is in front of the tractor and then the cultivator is cutting through in a precise way. And then you can place. This is another machine to sow your cover crop. Yeah, you can do it at the same time. You can have a seed tank in front of the tractor and a small seed tank on top of the machine. So you can have a mixed seed so that all types of seed can be planted. Here you can see how shallow the machine can work. And this is after the harvest of celery. Celery comes back all the time. So it's very important that you cut through 100%, and then you can grow a cover crop again. Here. So in effect, you shave, 2 inches, yeah, and
2 inches, 2 centimeters.
No, 1 inch or 2 inches, depends on what you're planting. Yeah, but it's important that you have 100% cut and the whole surface with the same depth. Yep. Well, then after all the work, the crop can grow. And you have clean fields. And then we still have flour. This is another, modern way. This is coming up in Holland more and more, that farmers try to stimulate the biodiversity, especially with insects. They use all the time with GPS tractors, use strips from 10 feet, and all crops come in the same pattern with 10 feet. So it's more and more diverse, and it looks strange for the modern type of agriculture with all the big machines, but it's getting more and more with robots and more professionalized. And even the universities work on it, that this is a good alternative for the monoculture, and you need less chemicals and less pesticides. So even for conventional farming, this is a focus that the technology is heading for. And more, you see that when I started in, let me say in 1980 with organic farming, I was the first one in this region, the polders. And nowadays it's 12% of the soil is already organic. So it's incredible what in one generation can change if you take the right direction and work on better results. Or in the first period, it was really hard to have an income and to feel confident in what it will bring for the future. But now, when a lot of people are working organic, you see the whole industry in machinery, but also in advising and in even natural protection of crops. You see, there's so much technology and so much knowledge nowadays, focusing on organic farming. And that's making me hopeful that if we have the right items, yeah, in our focus, we will get healing spirits. Is it that? That's it, I guess.
And then
Okay.
maybe there are some questions that people have kept for us. Let's see. Stop sharing.
Moet eventjes.
Hi.
Hi.
I do have, I think it was just one question that I saw in the chat, and it was, is the crop grass in these pictures?
Oh, the crop grass in these pictures.
It was,
I think it's all, you mean the pictures with the cover crops?
I figure it was, let me tell you.
A quarter ago, so.
Yeah.
There was one picture with the celery that looked a little bit maybe like grass, but that was
It was
celery.
before that.
Do you want me to go back into the PowerPoint or maybe?
I was the one that asked that question. It was in the earlier pictures, it looked like the tine weeding was being done, like the crop was grass that you were weeding or cultivating.
No, that was wheat.
Probably grain.
Grain, yeah.
Yeah, because then it's not spread in rows, but it's field. It was. I know which slide you were referring to. It was grain. Yeah. And do you have a specific question about that further?
Oh, that answers my question. Thanks.
May I ask a question?
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Hello.
Hi, hello. This is Jay Miller in Little Compton, Rhode Island. We have a USA. We have a small farm, and do you have a suggestion for a smaller version of what can actually chop up the cover crop? We typically mow it, but there may be a better solution than that.
You mow it and leave it on the ground?
No, we don't. We then essentially York rake it off.
Rake it off.
My heart can.
Yeah. There's an echo, so.
Oh, I'm sorry about that.
De vraag is of de.
Ja. Wat is een vrees in het?
Phrase. Phrasing.
I think the method they're talking about is that you roll it, kind of break it.
The cultivator.
Ja, dit werkt niet.
We're getting an echo.
Yeah, I think the echo might be coming from your end.
From our end? Okay.
What now?
Are you hearing it? Are you hearing an echo from my end?
No, that sounds bad.
Okay.
I hear myself.
Okay. And by the way, your English is a little better than my Dutch. So essentially, I'm trying to imagine a better version of what I do for a smaller use of chopping and removing the cover crop. Obviously, the way I do it leaves the roots pretty much in the ground. So it's not a satisfactory method. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Kun jij dit antwoorden, Jos?
Ja, ik zoek het woord vrees, maar.
Jos is looking for a translation of a word which neither of us know for the type of machine. A phrase?
Yeah, it's a shopper that goes through the ground.
Oh, are you a translation for a word that I used?
No.
Oh, no. Okay.
We will come back on it.
Very good. Thank you.
Next question.
Let me look it up, please.
Laura asks, where can people find the hand pull equipment?
Yeah, I just put I just put our email on the chat box. The best thing people could do is send us an email, and then I can get them in contact. We are the ones who they need to get in touch with to figure out the exact dimensions of the machine they want and the specific features they want. But there are, of course, local farmers in the US where they can have a chat with and who are users. And those people can also share their experience. There are farmers in 22 different states in the US that use our machine. So I can get them in contact, but of course they can contact us initially and I can give them a lot more information. Had je het gevonden, Vrees?
Yeah,
So-
the machine I was looking for, it's called a cutter or a ground miller or a grinder. That is the translation I find, but it's a very common machine in a way, but it's not so precise. So it's mixing more or less the organic stuff. It's cutting and mixing it in the top layer.
And the cultivators that we're used to using, you can get them smaller, obviously, but those are meant really to cut shallow, not to mix, like Jos was already describing, to keep the bottom layer even and flat so you can sow your crop in. And yeah, someone just said a crimper. It's not really a crimper.
But it's important that you start early with destroying the cover crop, early in the season, in the spring. For you need the time, the sun and the wind to let it die, that you don't have the crop disturbed by all the organic stuff. You have to make it short, of course, for otherwise you can't harrow anymore, or you can't cultivate anymore. So start early with destroying your cover crop. That's important.
Thank you very much for that thought.
Laura is asking how much time you need from killing cover crop to planting.
Yeah, that depends, of course, a lot on the temperature, on the season. If you have a real good springtime with enough wind, then a week can be enough. But otherwise, I would say at least take 2 weeks. That you can cultivate it once more in between, that it can dry and die. And do it really precise. Don't think it's enough, but in the meanwhile, there's still a lot standing, or you have a lot of troubles in the season when the cover crop is not dead before you plant.
Yes, one lady asked how much time do you need from killing the cover crop to planting? Oh, that's what you just said. Okay. Sorry about that.
The other question is, are you worried about regrowth? Is that why you want to remove the cover crop roots?
That's it. Yeah, it's important that you cut it 100%. Yeah, so often you see farmers starting in springtime where still some grasses are standing or other root or crops or whatever. Yeah, and then it looks like wonderful if you have planted or sown your crop, and then after a week you already see that they come back, and you have the whole season you have troubles with the competition between these crops and the crop you want. So you have a lot of hand labor to make this competition not overgrow your crop.
Jos iemand vraagt over there might be a small scale roller crimpers, or if you cut the crop very short, it should die back. And about flailing in oats of a dry.
But a roller crimper is not a cutter. A roller crimper is pulling it, pushing it down, and then you can leave it lying over there, and you sow or you plant in between. Yeah, but if you work like this, you can't use a harrow properly, or our cultivator afterwards.
And there are different techniques, and that's one technique, and this is another technique.
Okay. But we see it in America more than in Europe. Yeah, that they use a crimper. For example, a ray, they push it forward and they crimp it, and then they use special sewing machines to place the seed in this crimped ray.
Right.
Rye or ray?
Yeah, rye.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Thank you very much. This is very rich conversation. I am learning personally a lot. I will ask if folks want or can get your faces on the screen just for us to take a nice group picture for the video. It's so good to see you all early in the morning. Well, here's early in the morning.
Late in
And
the
here is
afternoon.
late in the afternoon.
Yeah, it's so nice to see everyone. So we have like probably 10 more minutes. So maybe we're gonna put in the chat a couple links if you guys want to do the map.
Is there a way that we can answer on the chats later?
If people have questions, I
Yeah.
included our email address.
Yeah,
And of course, it would be good to continue conversations that people have that want to go more in depth about some specific thing. And, would be glad to mail or Zoom with them individually whenever it's convenient for them. So yeah, share that and welcome to contact us. We learn a lot too from each other. So yeah, it's good to talk to one another.
Thank you for that. So let me, Meryl, do you want me to put the links for the, I think it was the link for that we promised for the word map, the native map.
Yeah, I can do that.
And I think the other one was for the auction. And I think we have one more for, let's see, I have my cheat sheet somewhere. Oh yeah, if people wanna just tell us how we did, this is the first one, the first chunk, and we're running 9 other workshops at the same time. So we want to know how you like the workshop and what other things do you want to see in different the next, hopefully in person. But first I wanted to say to Anna and Jose, we're really, really grateful that you were able to make time for our small conference, and we are really, really pushing organic here, and I hope your dream came true about becoming who you wanted to be, Jose. And we're learning a lot, and a lot of us are trying to follow your footsteps. So I think it's not just your dream.
No, that's nice. It would be nice to meet in person. We come to Massachusetts often. So who knows, maybe we can visit some of the farms in real life.
Yeah, we can do a farm tour.
Mhm.
After COVID, let us do all that. We're hoping in our summer conference, we will have a chance to be with each other.
Yeah. Thank you for all the background support too, to make it possible.
And I also want to thank you, the two interpreters.
Nice pictures. Okay.
If you have more questions, I'm gonna leave it open for a couple more minutes, and then I have to switch to my next. I have an 11, so I'm gonna switch. But you guys are welcome to save the chat so you can have all the links and emails. You click on the three dots in the chat and then save a chat. If you are in a smartphone, unfortunately, you can't save the chat, but if you want it, you can always email us and we will send it to you. We will save it for you.
Good. Ready.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.